Welcome to the See, Joy, and Expand podcast. My name is Christian Joy Panachos, and I am an embodiment life coach and quantum hypnotist. And come join me as we explore what it means to be a messy, raw, imperfect, and authentic human being through experiences of the body. We'll be journeying deep into our subconscious worlds and see what makes our souls tick, and coming back to our conscious minds with maybe a little bit more courage, a little bit more compassion for ourselves, and just daring to dream again. I hope that each episode will guide you to an aha moment, intuitive hit, or gut yes, so we can fearlessly live our lives again. Hello, everyone. Hello. Oh my God, it's been a hot minute since I put out an episode. I feel like I probably said that the last couple episodes. This summer has been absolutely wild, and it's August now. Everything, like the week or few weeks leading up into the full moon that just happened, has been such a fucking shift. It's been absolutely wild, and I share a little bit of it on my Substack, but I had personal challenges that happened, and ever since then it was like a light switch turned in me, and all of a sudden my manifesting generator self in human design, if you're not familiar, it's like finally access that joy that she didn't know, like didn't even know what that felt like. And I will be having a human design reader on the podcast in the future, so look out for those episodes. But for today, I do want to share before we move on to the episode that I am holding monthly breathworks called The Release. Check out the website, check out my Instagram stories. I share the deets all over there, and I'll even put it in the show notes in here. But I've been holding psychedelic breathworks all summer, and they have been fucking fabulous. I've been getting a great response with them. So please join us. It's such a beautiful, potent experience. If you want an energetic shift and you don't know how to do that on your own, you get to do it with us and community. And it's one of my favorite things to do and to share with other people. Look out for that in the show notes. And for this episode, oh my God, one of my favorite people in the world, Stormy Sage. I am so excited to share her with you guys. We met each other a couple years ago at an Akashic Records retreat in Panama, and honestly, I look up to her. She is a role model for me personally because, man, if I ever met anybody that unabashedly chose and embodies their self-expression, their uniqueness, their self-exploration, their discovery, stepping into living that who am I in every moment, not even questioning, but and using her intuition every step of the way, it would be her. And she's been so like inspiring in that sense. Like she inspires me to be more of me and her being herself. So I hope you guys get so she just dropped so many wisdom bombs in this episode. So please, I hope you enjoy, or if you don't, it's like no pressure, but always never any pressure. And I'll see you on the other side of this episode. Hi, everybody. It's Christian here, and I have Stormy, formerly known as Erica.
Yes.
Which I want to get into
Yeah.
maybe later, but
I would love to.
I would love to hear your introduction. I don't think I've ever heard your introduction except for the intro on your podcast. And I don't even really know what you title yourself, if there is one.
Yeah. So, which is funny because I think it's just like this ever evolving, ever changing thing, which I think so many of us can relate to. But I have really spent so much time and energy and just like blood, sweat, and tears trying to be like, what do I identify as? Like, what do I call myself? Like, who am I? And it's really difficult to put that into like a tagline. And so like, I think over the years, as I've gone on this journey, I've been really attached to certain like things and wanting to be very specific what I call myself. And right now, my tagline, who I identify with right now, is I'm a podcaster, I'm an intuitive, and I love to talk and coach about self-discovery. So it's just really, really all of that. It's just real simple now, where usually I would overthink and create this really crafty, creative thing. But like that's just what I am now. Yeah, and I go by
I
Stormy
love
now.
this.
Yeah.
Yeah, oh my gosh. Part of me was like, I want to know about the Stormy story.
Yes.
And you talked about identity, and I was like, gosh, it's Pride Month.
Oh,
It
yes,
feels so
absolutely.
important to talk about identity because
Yeah.
because my personal experience with identity, see, this is okay. We had a plan before, and now I'm going this way, and this is just how this podcast is going to be.
We're going to roll with
We had a
it.
rough draft of where this is going, but never mind. And I just remember when I was a kid that I always wanted to do my own thing, and that was like, for some people, like, it's very scary to do what you want to authentically do for yourself because it can be isolating. And in my journey of that is like knowing that I was always different from other people, but figuring out the label never made sense to me. Like, I feel like I am a million different labels, but like a mishmash and like little bits and pieces of each label. Like, I shared on stories the other day about Pride Month, and I do share a lot of like LGBTQIA plus content. But I was like, maybe I should say this out loud. I identify as straight. And I don't know if people like wonder about that because I do share that. And actually, my sister asked me that question. She's like, why do you share all this stuff? And I was like,
You're
oh,
like,
it's because of
I'm an
all the
ally.
people I love in my life who identify as, you know.
Yeah.
And she's like, oh, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So
Isn't that funny? Like how if you share those things, then people are like, wait, like, do they identify as like, is there something I don't know about them? But really, it's just that's what
yeah.
allyship is just sharing love. And I think it's a beautiful month in general because it has so much to do with, okay, sexuality, but also like it's just a month of like celebrating love too and how love looks differently in relationships and like what different, I think it lays out to like new dynamics or like new constructs or like I don't even know what to call it. It's just like a whole new structure of what love can be and what can love what love looks like. So I think that's beautiful that you share all those things. But yeah, I think identity is a huge topic that you can kind of dissect or experience and also experiment with within yourself. If it's like, you know, there's like sexuality and then there's appearance and then there's like activities and then there's job and then there's like, who are you just yourself and then who are you in relation to other, and it's like a really fun thing to explore that I think people don't do enough of, you know. So
I love that you said appearance too as like a part of identity, and like part of my
yeah.
creative journey lately is like, you know, I always like admired people who always dressed out of the box, like
Mm.
were funky and eclectic and stuff like that. And like, I'm just like all black or maybe a little bit of white or maybe a little bit of color. And I'm just like, I want to experiment more with my my physical representation of me. And I've always had that question about me. Is like, Christian cut her hair. She might not be straight anymore. And I was like,
That's
and
yeah,
it's
that's
really funny because people who know me, they're like, that suits your personality. And I was like, yeah, it does. It's interesting, like, how it's back to the programming of the brain, right? Like, if you've never had that experience with another person of what is possible with that identifying marker or trait or whatever adjective, they like their brain just automatically files it into a box and they're like, oh, this is how I can relate to this person.
yeah,
Do you
yeah,
experience
of
that?
like or yeah, like it's like I definitely have um it's a double-edged sword in like a good and bad way, because I have experimented and like changed, if we just talk about hair, like it's giving it's giving Princess Diaries when she had her makeover and she had like the fro curly. Do you know that scene where she like gets the makeover and then she has like straight hair and then she's like this? Have you seen that movie?
I didn't really watch that movie.
Okay, well, maybe
I'm
the
sorry.
listeners will understand. Okay, speaking of hair, there's just like so much that we could do to like alter our appearance that one makes us feel internally different. And then also like we're met externally different by others. So it's like relation to you and relation to others it alters. So if we just talk about hair, I've been like different colors, like shaved on the sides, like blonde, long, black, like orange, like so many different styles. Like this is the normaler-ish style that I have had in a little while. And I'm still like kind of growing out. So like this is still short underneath.
Oh,
That's getting
I
there.
love
It's
it.
getting long. Yeah. But I'm in the process of growing my undercut out. But anyways, I'm thinking like, I wonder if it's like what people are actually responding to, or if it's actually how you feel. Because whenever like I have an internal
Mm.
shift, or when I want to have an internal shift, for me it's very easy to be like, oh, I have to change my hair. And so I feel like when I change on the inside, then like and I have something external change like hair, like I feel like I'm met differently from other people and like the environment. So like when I carry I carried myself different when I had different hairstyles or different piercings and that. And so I think it's a really fun way to like see what comes out in yourself, and then how also what that brings for like other people. And that doesn't even have to like, it's a tool, like we can use that for change, but really we could have that internal shift and that like alter ego or that like personality shift without changing anything from the outside. And then we can have a different response from other people too. So it's kind of like you can use it for your benefit, or you cannot use it and you can still have a shift. So it doesn't really necessarily like you need an external change to have an internal change, vice versa. But yeah, I
But
think
it
that what
helps though.
it helps. It 100% helps. That's why I love to play around with it, to be like, okay, I'm exploring this version of me or like this aspect of me. So it's like when I started to like really play around with like my own femininity and getting connected back to like my feminine, I was like, wow, like I don't think I own any dresses anymore. Like, what would it feel like if like I were to buy a dress? So then I like started wearing dresses, and I was like, and so like I felt different in my internal state. And then I felt different response from the outside world, from like other people with me wearing a dress. So it's just kind of fun to just play with that, I think, which is really interesting. I don't know.
I think for me, like I love how you said internal and external, because it's like a relationship between the two. It's not always like, I think
Yeah.
traditionally, historically, people always focused on external as their validating factors, right? But there's also this internal world that I think collectively a lot of us are like starting to lean into more. But it was really funny because when
Yeah. True.
you even engage in different generations, when my grandma saw my hair, she's like, I don't even recognize you anymore. What happened? And it's not even the first time I ever cut my hair like this, like back in like
Yeah.
the 2011s, I think, 2015. I had my hair long, but I did shave like the one side of my head. And I
Nice.
didn't see my grandma during that phase. But then when I did see her like more recently, now that I'm in California, she was like, what happened? And I was like, wait, what do you mean what happened? Like I've been doing this,
Right.
you know?
Right. And I think that's also I'm glad you brought that up, because I feel like I've done really like out there things that like aren't so normal. Like, I mean, you see more people like having different side shaves or like different piercings, or I think like in generations of waves of experimentation, that is something that you feel like more comfortable in a way, because you see like kind of other people experimenting with it. So you're just like, oh, well, I could try that. But I think that I get more surprised by the people that I think are going to have an issue with what's different about me, and then they absolutely don't, or like they absolutely love it. It's like, and I had like experienced that when I was in healthcare, and then also when I was traveling, like when I was in different countries that like predominantly really had more of a very specific type of like female representation. And then here am I going to a barbershop getting my head shaved in like different barbershops around the country. Like I thought I was going to not have really good experiences. But then like the men that were like hyper masculine, like seeing me come in, they're like, yes, like, you know, so it's almost like you kind of sometimes can like bury yourself or like buffer yourself for like a bad expected experience based on like what you think is different about you. And maybe it's not even externally, maybe it's because you think you're weird, or if you identify as gay, or if you, I mean, obviously there are experiences that can happen that you don't have that experience. But I think a lot of like what we are hesitant about with each other is like this expected response that we might get. And then it's like you don't put yourself authentically out there because you think that this person isn't going to receive you well. And then I would, 8-9 times out of 10, I would have the total opposite experience of what I expected to happen, which I think takes like yourself some like data points collecting with people that can receive you like that. I'm not sure if that makes sense.
No, I actually love what you just said. Okay, the part that I really love that you said, that was just like, wait a second. You go to a barber shop. That was my big thing.
Yeah.
Because, okay, so like, and it's like the internal world versus the external world. Like what people you think they're going to perceive of you, like how they're going to react versus like, maybe I'm just going to embody it instead.
Yeah.
And it's funny that even while I was changing my look again,
yeah,
I still chose to go to a salon.
Really?
And my
okay.
experience, and I love this so much. In my experience, my hairdresser, she's Korean. She fucking hates doing my hair. She's like, when are you gonna grow it out? And I'm like, I don't know. And my boyfriend loves my haircut, so I'm like, I'm sorry, you're just gonna have to live with this for a while.
You're like, I love it. My partner loves it. Like, your opinion is, thank you for having one. It really matter.
Well, she's very okay, and that's another thing too. That I've been like collecting my thoughts on lately is you know how like the word microaggressions, are you familiar with it?
Yeah.
So I have trouble with that word because when I hear that word, like, oh, they're having a microaggression, I was like, okay, am I supposed to be angry about like, because I hear the word aggression, they're having a microaggression. Am I supposed to be angry that they're having like saying this thing or having an action? It's usually like a word, like a phrase that they said. And part of me is like, it reminded me of the time I was travel nursing in Texas. And one of my patients was a older white gentleman, very religious, never really seen anybody with my facial features. And he was like, he said, you speak very good English. And I was like, oh, thank you. I've only lived here my whole life. But that's like, I said that, but I didn't say it out of like, I'm, in the healthcare field, you're used to meeting like different people from everywhere.
Yeah.
So you're used to hearing stuff like that. But what happened was like, instead of treating it as a microaggression, because like I just feel like it's a violent word. I don't know how it feels to you, but I still continue to engage in conversation. And if it weren't for him, because he's like religious, and I told him like, this is during COVID, this was a COVID assignment, this is like basically the end of the world.
It's like life as we knew it.
We were just talking.
Over.
We haven't been able to talk to anybody. We'll take anybody who's in front of us, including our patients.
Like, you'll do.
And then when I told him like over the years, like there's this one thing that I've never investigated, this like part of my life, and like like if in a wheel of like wholeness, there's like different areas of life, and you like, I was talking about how you make goals every year based on that, like family, recreation, career, etc., all those things. And and I told him the one thing was that I wouldn't like explore because I was scared of it was spirituality. And this is like a white Christian man from Texas. And like at the end of that conversation, after we talked about all the philosophical things under the sun, he said at the end, he's like, can I ask you this question? And he's like, what do you believe in? I was like, I believe there's a higher power. And he was like, that's great. He's like, how about like, don't shut it off. Like, be curious about it and just see what happens. And it doesn't have to look like religion. And I was like, okay, all right. I've never, like, I don't think I've ever heard anybody say that before. And then thus started my journey.
Oh my gosh, that was definitely before I met you, because then we were
Yeah,
at the Akashic retreat.
Yeah, this is like, and it's so interesting that if you don't suppose that this is where this person's coming from, you don't know what's going to happen in that conversation.
Yeah.
And what will unfold for you.
Yeah, and in a lot of cases, I think it robs you and the other person of a potential really powerful shifting experience or conversation. And I think that like, there's a lot of points that I can like go in direction because my brain's just like, oh my God, there's so much here.
This is what our brains do.
Yeah.
Which way do we want to go?
Like there's a few tracks I could take this. And I think that like we can like, rob ourselves of this experience. One, thinking that the other person is going to, it's like almost like what you don't want to happen to yourself, you're actually doing to another person. And so if you're putting like all these judgments or like all these, you're judging their book by their cover, but you don't want your book to be judged. It's just kind of like, what are you doing? Like there's no love in that exchange. And so you're immediately thinking that this person is going to think a certain way, think about me in a certain way, or like be at a certain frequency. And it's like not allowing that person to just like be an open book and be like, okay, what am I going to find? And I think like the other track I could take that is that so much conflict that is within ourselves and with each other and with the world, especially right now, is that like we view everything in separation and everything as you're not me and we're not the same. And I believe this and I dress like this and I look like this and that's different. And then it just puts this huge gap of separation. And then it continues to separate us even further from what the frequency of love is. And like, that's what we're really to get back here to be, is to like, to bridge that back together. Even though you have all these differences, we're actually really the same. And like, the more that I've experienced with like different cultures, different religion, different, whatever you want to label any of those differences in, is like, actually, it's just like, whoa, there's a lot different, but there's a hell of a lot more similar about each and every one of us. And so that's a track that I could take that conversation with. And then the other thing that had popped up in my head was that I had an experience kind of almost similar, where it was like, he was probably within his like 60s or 70s. This was a few years ago. I was taking care of him in the medical field. And he was from Egypt, like a doctor. His wife was a doctor, like very proper, really, really nice man. I took care of him for like a couple of days. I feel like I've shared this conversation.
I don't think I've heard the story because I like instantly got excited about the word Egypt and I was like, I haven't heard this.
Which like, okay, yeah, right, okay, cool.
And if anybody doesn't know, Stormy's background is nursing too.
Yes, right. So we were both travel nurses in different sects. So this is when I was on assignment, and I was working with him for several days because I chunked my days in a row. So it was like 3 or 4 days I was with him. And so we got to a level of like understanding and I guess rapport after a few days. Like it was a level of comfortability where like I could tell that he was comfortable now to like maybe ask me things that like he wouldn't have asked me like day one of me taking care of him. And so he asked me, like, can I ask you something? And always I'm just like, oh God, what is this going to be? Like, cause it's just like, it's going to be personal, it's going to be maybe weird. Like, but it was nice that he asked.
He's like, you've seen my bits. Can I ask you a question?
Anybody in any kind of service industry or like healthcare, like knows, like when it's just like, somebody is just like, can I ask you something? And you're like, oh, sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, so anyways, so he goes along and he was like, and he was very serious. And I was like, okay, like what's going to be happening here? And he was like, why do you ruin your such beautiful skin? And I initially, literally, that was my face. Like, that's probably how I felt. Was like, because I have tattoos. And so I knew he was.
I didn't even think of the tattoos.
Yeah, right. And you're like, what? Because there's not a whole lot of people. I mean, it's more popular now in healthcare, but at the beginning of my career, because I was a nurse for 10 years, and at the beginning of my career, I wore long sleeves. Like it was like something that like I covered, like nobody knew. It was very unprofessional if I showed them. And then over the last few years, like it's been, easier. So now I wear and that was with, professionally and also I think personally. So I'm at a level where I'm like, I'm wearing short sleeves and I don't even think about it anymore. It's not even something that crosses my mind. But I do have some older populations that like are a little bit taken back by all of this. And so I don't know if you can see very much of it in my video, but I have them on my arms and stuff. And so I say this because it reminded me of the same moment that you had with him. And sometimes we can think that somebody is really like trying to microaggress you, have microaggression, or try to throw shade at you, or try to really like be mean, when honestly, like people just don't know. Like they don't know maybe your culture. They don't know where are you from. Or they're trying to make some sort of conversation. Like a lot of the times, if I like orient back from like a frequency of love, and other people are in frequency of love, no matter if they're not, it kind of gives you a different level of understanding and like heart-centered communication with people. Because it's like, if I were to assume he was trying to attack me, I would have a much different response than if I were to assume he's actually just curious and doesn't know. Like he really just didn't understand it. And so like after my initial like, I'm sorry, what? Then I was able to be like, then I was able to like step back and be like, okay, he really just doesn't know. And he's confused as why someone would want to get tattoos and why someone maybe like me would want to get tattoos. So I explained like, this is, basically a treasure map of my life. I have all of these really fascinating, travels and experiences. And it's a, it's a visual representation of my life. And then with excitement, I'm saying, this one's from Vietnam and this one's from here and this one's energy. And if you look at it, this gives you energy. And so I was like, just describing to him, like where I went to get the tattoos and how it was so meaningful to me and what stories were behind it. And like throughout that kind of conversation. And granted, I know this isn't going to happen every time, but in this experience, it was like it was like an aha moment for him to be like, whoa, that's really cool. Like, thank you for sharing that. And he was like, I'm going to look at tattoos and people who have tattoos way differently just by your explanation. Because he really just had no idea like why somebody would ever want to get a tattoo. And so it just like makes me think, like if I were to like meet him, maybe at the same frequency he was at, or if I were to meet him with like, how dare you ask me that? Or like to be offended, it wouldn't have been this beautiful moment maybe for him to shift. And then for me to share my truth. Yeah. So it's like you being able to speak your own truth when someone gives you that, question, or you're in this scenario, or you're in a room of people that don't look like you, or don't think like you. And part of our job, as I say job very loosely, but part of a lot of us, why we've come to Earth is to like share that light and share that frequency. And that's not just by like, meditating or
Oh
praying or
yeah,
going,
it doesn't
it's,
look like it doesn't have a
yeah,
look, right?
it's everyday life. It's interactions. It's day-to-day things. It's you showing up to be like, yeah, this is going to be me. And then that light will turn somebody else's light on to be like, wait, she's just really rocking out her own authentic self. So like, I can do that for myself. So it's kind of just like that is what. So I just said a whole lot of things. So
Yeah, no, but it's like and there were so many things I could
I don't even know.
always when
I'm
we
like,
talk.
let me know where you want to take that. Yeah, no.
Well, no, it's really like, okay, first of all, you said you like met him with curiosity, and that's what I felt in that older white man from Texas. Is like he wasn't
Yeah,
saying it to be rude, but
yeah.
he had the energy of curiosity. And I do want to say, and I love that this is like the importance of authenticity. I feel like if you show up authentically as yourself instead of looking like cookie cutter, out of the like cookie cutter, like with the rest of the world, like, and then you come with this different energy that people normally don't associate with, like, I feel like people would expand their worldview for like what the possibilities of what a human expression can be.
Yeah.
And then you said two words, and I want to see if we can define them, because I don't know that everybody listening to this podcast will understand what frequency means or even what
Okay.
energy means.
Yeah,
So
okay.
I was
Sure,
wondering
sure.
if you have the words for that yet.
To identify that. Yeah. I love that because yeah, it's kind of like so if you're listening this far, you know that I had introduced myself as a podcaster. And so my podcast is called Between Portals. And so a lot of the things that I speak about on that podcast has everything to do with all of this, like identity, like frequency, energy, all these things. I just dive in really deep. So if you're just a little bit curious of like, what are all of these things? Like kind of flip through some of those episodes and you'll kind of get a touch. Okay, so identifying frequency. I kind of hit this at a few different angles because it is something that is very like more broad and more wider. I think our understanding of it becomes wider when I describe it this way, is that it is at a foundational level, like we are energy beings, and it's not just even like this is actually scientific, like this isn't like a woo-woo thing, like we are energy. And so much so, we've both been in healthcare where you put these electrodes on your chest and then there is a literally like a frequency, your heart rate is like shows up on a monitor. So we are vibrating, our body is vibrating at a certain frequency level. So there's energy all around us. So part of that as frequency is identifying, okay, I am a certain frequency. Other people are at a certain frequency. Things and energy around us are all at a frequency. So it's kind of like, like if you were to see like a black and white movie and then all of a sudden like you see color and you see like a colored movie, you're like, whoa, I didn't know any of that existed. Like it's kind of like that where I feel like, you're living in a world that's day to day, that's like normal. But then when you orientate from like, hey, wow, everything and anything is at a certain frequency. And then it's like your perception of things just start to shift. And I don't get super into the nitty gritty of like scientific stuff, but it's like
Can I
an
add to that?
Yeah, go ahead. Yes, please.
So the way I've heard it explained, in a sciencey way, is that we're made up of
Yeah.
atoms, and like
Yes. Oh.
atoms are like hollow, I don't know, whatever shape they come in,
Uh-huh.
things of energy, and we're made up of just space. We're generally just like this invisible energy. And then people are like, well, how come I can see you? They vibrate so fast that it
I was
creates
just
this
about to say that.
picture.
Yeah.
And this is,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
And this is
Okay.
like, this
Yeah.
is the scientific
Yeah.
explanation of that, like
Right.
the way I understand it. And
Right.
I don't remember where you were going to go with that, like when you were going to keep going, but I
Yeah.
guess you were
Okay.
going to go there.
I'll pick it up from there. No, that's great. That's a great addition because it's true. And it's like, I was just kind of trying to think, I know that there's a level of like, okay, when things are vibrating at a lower frequency, then like the more solid and dense things get. So it's like, like this is living and vibrant and frequent, but it's like, the vibration's lower. So it's like dense. So I remember learning that back in school, and I'm like, okay, some of this knowledge is at least a little bit helpful, but
in science,
right? You're like, it's like, what's actually useful in your life, like log division and stuff or whatever, or just like whatever. We won't get into that.
Who does long division? We all
Nobody
have calculators.
does. No, I know. Or like even like whatever. We're not going to go. I can take a whole nother
Let's not go
conversation.
that direction.
We won't go down that track. So, okay, the other side of things. So you have the scientific version, and then you say like you have maybe a spiritual, or we'll say a spiritual version, which is like we can sect those into like two different things, just for like more clear understanding. And it's just kind of like the same when we talked about identity. Like I can choose to identify myself as this, or like have this haircut or dress this way, just to like have a better understanding of myself. And so I think that's what happens, what we do when we have like the science explanation or the spiritual explanation or a personal experience explanation of things, is it just gives us more of this broader understanding of like the same thing. So like I say like a science and spiritual, but it's like science is spiritual, spiritual is science. It's just like interlinked. And the spiritual sense is like, okay, if we're energetic beings, you might have heard something called chakras or auras, and that's like our field actually extends out a few feet, and we can extend our field out even further when we start to really work with it. So when you are speaking with somebody,
the auric field.
Yes. And so when you start to like feel your own field, and then you're actually feeling, when you get a certain feeling about somebody, they're angry, or I like them, or I don't like them, you're repelled by them, you're interacting with their energetic field. You're interacting with their frequency. So it's kind of like that sixth sense of like that other thing that comes before like knowing. Like I can know that maybe I don't feel safe here, or this person is ringing an alarm within me, and that can connect back to like intuition or a gut feeling. And so that's where I kind of orient or identify with like frequency. And frequency can be a couple of different things too. So we can then say, I'm going to feel into the frequency or the energy of what love is. So if you can think about like how you... What?
Can I say something real quick? Every time I want to interrupt an ad, you're going to that topic. You're talking about feelings now. And I was like, oh, there she goes.
Wait, you were thinking that as I
was thinking like emotions. Like that's how I know how to describe frequency and energy.
Okay.
So I was like, I love. Okay,
I was getting your telepathy.
She's talking about love now. Let's go. Yes.
Yeah. So then, if we think about like, okay, if you dive like, because the word, it could be so broad and also could be so specific. So if you feel into the energy or the frequency of love that we talked about earlier, if you orient from a place of like, I am going to embody, like imprint, just be love. And if you're like, what the fuck is she talking about? Like, if you can think about the time that like if you felt really loved, or like if you got a hug from somebody, or if like your partner is just like, you just felt love. And so that is the energy that you're feeling into that love frequency. And so you can take an emotion, say it's an emotion that you want to feel more often in your life, or there's emotions that you don't want to feel, or you want to feel less. Not that, they're all relevant, they're all good. There's no good and bad emotions, but there's definitely emotions that we want to stay in more than not.
Yeah.
So, it's
that are more
like,
pleasant.
Yeah, like all is helpful, and like they all have value, and it's all a part of like our human experience. But yeah, if you're like, okay, yeah, I want more play and more joy and more love. Like that's what I want my life to feel like. And that's definitely not what I'm feeling right now, day to day, in and out, going to work, going to school, or in my relationships. I know a lot of people that like listen to podcasts and like want to work on things. They're not where they're at. They're not where they're at, where they want to be. So if you say, okay, I want to experience those three things, it's like, how can I do that internally first, because that's where everything really starts. And then your outside world starts to change. So part of that experience is like, okay, if I want to experience more joy, how can I really feel what joy feels like inside? And that'll be a frequency that you orient from, like, oh, okay, when was the last time I felt joy? Like, what are activities that make me feel joyful? Or like, who are people that make me like help me feel joy, you know? And you can orient from that frequency, that energy, and say, okay, today is going to be a joy day, which is funny because you're Joy, but I don't know why I'm like so on this, but
my middle name.
I know. But yeah,
I have a question though.
Okay, tell me.
About okay. So this is my journey, like the month of June. I dubbed it the month of joy and creativity for me. That's why I disappeared off of Instagram and taking a break from the podcast, because
This segues beautifully.
I know, right? Well, I mean, I could segue in a million ways because I was like having a million thoughts when you were saying all that stuff.
Yeah.
But like, what would you say to the person who has trouble accessing it? And like, I've had multiple different conversations like with different people, and some people's experience. Okay, before I start this, I want to say the nuance of a person's experience is real. Like,
Yeah.
just because I experience this way, this is not how somebody else is experiencing this way. The energy of that is
Yeah.
very individual. And I do that in my work when it comes to coaching. Like, I use my clients' words rather than inserting my own, because it might, what I think they're talking about might not resonate with them if I use my own words. So that's like a actionable, like in action play on how the energetics of words. Like, so back to accessing this word, like joy, like creativity, like love. Like, what if the person doesn't even know what that means for them? Like, what if they don't have memories of them as a child accessing joy, or what was that fun thing that they did? And I think as I am moving towards my, like, I left my job, I'm in my business now, I'm still like unpacking what creativity and joy is for me, because I know that this business would not be sustainable unless I unlock those things. In fact, you know, it's funny, right before we were hit record, like before I came on, I went to Barnes and Noble and got this book. Do you remember this?
I love that. I love that. You know what? And this is, you were just talking about like taking breaks too and not being mad about yourself. And I have not made it all the way through that book yet. I took a break. I literally have it on my nightstand right now because I like moved and also like was in between, and I was like, I need to get back to this. But that book is super powerful, and I'm excited to see what's going to be on the other side of it when I actually finish all of the weeks. I might be like halfway, a little bit more than halfway through. But yeah, that is a brilliant way to explore it, because, okay, so if you guys are listening and if you didn't visually see what she just brought out, it was the book, The Artist's Way. What's her name again? When you have it right in front of you.
It's Julia Cameron.
Yeah, Julia Cameron, The Artist's Way. And I have been on this path for like myself personally, because I was somebody that has been like very type A, very serious, very goal oriented, very driven, very like, you know, got to tick all the boxes and like, then I'll feel all of those things. It was difficult for me, like in adult life, to like feel like what play and joy was, because I was so like, you know, just
in another energy,
so
right?
In another
energy,
frequency.
Completely. It feels different.
Exactly. It feels different, and you feel different, and like everything about that energy of like who I was, it's not separate for me. It's not something that I'm like, oh, that's not me at all. That's, you know, because I think that's also something that like is really skewed in how like changes, or how you want to be like, forget the old you, like this, like, I think that causes also a lot of issues and a lot of shadow, because then you're just shoving those parts away and saying that's bad. But like, it's like, wait a minute. Okay. I know she's in there. She's a really effective person when I need to get shit done, when I need to write things down, and I need to bring my inner
Yes.
masculine in to be like, okay, we're recording this podcast, we're going these places, we're booking our flights. Like, it's a very useful energy for me to tap into, but it's not a frequency that I want to always live in, because she's stressed the fuck out.
That girl got burnt out.
Yes.
That for me, that girl got burnt
Right,
out. A
right,
person
right.
that and people might not even know a masculine energy, but it's like the energy of you have to keep doing. You
Yes,
have to
the
keep
doing
producing.
energy. Yeah.
And then it's not that masculine energy is bad. There is like the wounded masculine and then
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
divine masculine, is that the word?
Yeah, and we
So
can even take that word out. It's not even that. Like, I identified as that. It's helpful to put labels to things to have broader understanding of what they are,
yeah.
because then it gives like validation of like, oh, those things are what I felt. Those things are what I'm feeling, and so that makes really sense when I see all of those things, and it's labeled as like inner masculine. So it's just helpful to like. It's only helpful if you find it helpful. If it's not
To
helpful,
identify,
yeah,
give it a word,
to
like
give
this
it a
is
word.
what I'm going through.
Right,
Not that
right.
that's what it needs to be.
Yeah,
Like
totally.
I think I was talking to my cousin like over the weekend, and she was talking about, so her brother, he's gay, and then she's like sort of religious, but she doesn't really identify as like Baptist. But they were
Mhm.
having like this like kind of debate or conversation about raising kids, because she has 2 kids, and she's like, I don't want to like I can't, I don't even have the words for this, but like when you're a parent and you're not versed in the world of LGBTQ and all that, like you feel like if you're teaching your kids, you're scared that they're gonna become something that they're not or something like that. Like if they hear something, they'll become that. Like, does that make sense?
Right.
Like I still haven't
Yeah.
figured out the thing. Like I feel like I don't even know that I ever had that fear with my son, but and she was talking about how religion, like she's not religious. She's doesn't even she calls it a relationship. I have a relationship
Mhm.
and to God, or what, however she labeled her higher power. I think it was God. And she said it's like I don't look at the Bible as like a thing where like the set of rules and like it I don't even remember how to like explain the whole conversation, but it was like what I got out of it, because it's not like she lets the book like rule her life, which was really funny because that's how her brother was approaching her, like, you're that scary religious person, but she's not.
Uh-huh.
She's like, this, I see the Bible as something that adds value to my life rather than I need to be the Bible. And I was just like,
Mm.
that was really interesting to put it that way. And to know somebody who does engage in religion, look at religion that way, like
Mm.
another opening to that. Instead of like, I think the old paradigm, like in the patriarchy, was how can I be more of something else rather than how can I use the things that resonate with me, even in religion. And I feel like it's really cool that
Mhm.
I see that. My cousins are like, they're like 28, and I was like, "Oh my god, I like actually really love that."
Yeah. Yeah. I like that because it brings back even to how we were talking about like words. It's like it has really not as much to do with the actual thing or the word or like the box or the identity, but like how you're relating to it. And if you're allowing it to explore, to be curious, to be additive, like does it feel good, or are you using it in ways that feels very like limiting, or things that you have to be or to become, or like you're not enough relating to? It's like it's anything can be uh you know can bring out the best in you or the worst in you. Like, if someone reads the Bible and you're like, okay, I'm not religious in a way where it's like I've had my own journey with religion, so that can be a whole nother conversation. And I actually just
Oh,
recorded a podcast about this. um yeah, it's just like how you relate to it, and then how you feel in it. And it's like, is this making me feel like less than, or not enough, or is it really like building me up and it makes me feel good? And or am I learning something from this? Yeah, so I think it's really comes down to like what you had said, and I love that she had that phrase, like, I have a relationship with God, or I have a relationship with, you know, frequency or energy. It's like we are always in this, like, we can say like this, another fancy word of like co-creating. We're always like in this like jumble of a mix of like we're creating our experience with ourselves, with other people, with places, with things, with food, and we can. You have relationships with it all, even though it's not
with everything.
With everything, and it's like,
Yeah.
okay, how are my relationships? Is just could be a whole nother big question that you can ask yourself, and that can unlock a lot of things. But I forgot
Oh my
how
God. In
we
this
went on a
conversation
tangent.
itself.
Where did we originally begin? Shit, because there was something.
What do you
that
mean,
we
like
were,
in the beginning of the conversation? Like,
yeah, or
we
just
were
the
talking
beginning
about
of this
identity.
But no, but just this bit, just a little bit before. I don't know. I thought we had
honestly don't even remember.
question. I don't either. Oh my God, we've gone so many ways. Okay, doesn't matter. I'll just.
It's okay.
Woo.
But can I ask you a question now that
Yeah.
like we were talking about frequency and identity, how it all feels different? Like even like frequency can be tied with emotions. Like that's a great, I feel like emotions is a great tangible like explanation for frequency and energy. Is like love feels different than hate, joy feels different than whatever the opposite of joy is.
Yeah.
And so like so different
Despair, maybe? I
emotions,
don't know.
different words have a feeling to them. What was that?
Yeah. Like joy, what's the opposite of joy? I'm thinking
And
like despair. Like, I don't know. I don't know what the exact opposite. It was just kind of thinking in my brain, like what it
I
can
think
be the
no, because I
opposite of.
saw
I don't know.
a
A bad
post on
time?
it recently. What was that?
A bad time? Maybe like you're just having a bad time and that's the opposite of joy?
Oh,
I don't know.
was reading a post on Instagram and they said that the opposite of joy isn't like despair or depression. It was more like, what was the word they used? It was like apathy. I think it was apathy. But I couldn't even riff off of that. Like I was like, huh, that's really
Yeah.
interesting thought. That it's not
Yeah.
actually like depression or sadness or
Yeah,
whatever.
I guess
But
maybe a neutral space
anyways,
then, yeah.
back
Yeah. Anyways.
yeah. Back to my question. So I guess I'll break it up in two parts. What word have you been vibing with lately? Like what is
Oh.
that? What or what word are you maybe in right now? What are you wanting to embody? And what's
Yeah.
the word that you don't like? Right?
Like something that I'm working on.
Yeah.
So I would say immediately right off the bat before like when you first asked the question was freedom. It's definitely a frequency and something that like honestly that I've just been like dissecting for myself, like what this actually means for me in like tangible, real ways of like what X, Y, and Z things would equal freedom to me. And also, what does it feel? What do I feel like I need to do? Or like, what would I want to do to feel that? And so, that's been a big one. I've been working through, and I've had some like it's been a big one. I've had some like
Yeah.
like so I've had like some like very very big shifts in how I like difference of opinions of like what I feel like freedom feels like for me. So that's been really surprising because I was like, whoa, like what I thought would equal freedom for me, say like 5 years ago, is like actually not what I feel like freedom is for me right now. So I think it's interesting, like to like also let that be something where it's like you can have a relationship with a word or a frequency, and you can have a very now definition of like what you want or like what you want to feel, but also like a few months down the line, a year down the line, 5 years, like you could completely want something different, and that's okay. But I have like just came to this like realization where I was like, whoa, there was like some core beliefs that I had about myself of like what freedom meant for me. Cause it's always been a very specific thing that has like, I would say like ruled my world. It's always been like in the background of like doing things in search of feeling that. And it's always been very important for me. And when like life is like not going as I want, or when I feel really frustrated, it's like a human design thing for me. Like if I feel frustrated, I'm not aligned.
I have that too.
It is a fucking bitch too. Like I hate to feel frustrated. I hate to feel frustrated. So like the frustration is key for me. But I'm realizing now that like what my definition of freedom is like changing in this, as like I age, as like my life stages are different. And also like, a lot of things that I thought that gave me freedom was actually just previous wounding that I had when I was younger. So it's been a very interesting exploration. Yeah. So I would say freedom is the word. Yeah.
I love that. I think 20-year-old me would be like, freedom. I want freedom. I don't want people controlling me. I want to travel the world. I want unlimited finances so I could do whatever I want. That's what freedom looked like to me. Like, was that 19 years ago now?
Yeah.
Like freedom, like I heard freedom in there, but what, like, it feels like freedom now, and I don't know if you resonate with this, but this is what freedom is looking like for me, is like freedom from my mind. Freedom from the things that told me that I can't do this, or like how I show up in authenticity, which we could even break down that word. What the fuck does authenticity even mean?
I hate that word though. It's like when things become really like, another word that I hate, and we'll just do like just a little sidetrack. It's like when on like the social media trains, you just like have like certain things that trend. I hate the word cortisol. I hate the word like gut health and like leaky gut and like all this stuff that just like is like always in my feed. And I don't know if it's just in my feed.
I thought you were going to say like I thought you were going to say something like manifestation or something.
Oh yeah, that too. Like, but I have an okay relationship with that. I'm okay with that. But I'm like more triggered about like, oh my God, I hear this again, where I'm like, I don't know. It's a whole thing. But it's like, yeah, authenticity is another word that I think is such a good, important like word. I think it's super powerful, but in the way that sometimes like we like to just really hype on it, then like that's all you're hearing, and you're like, okay, yeah, I'm gonna be my authentic self, but like what the fuck does that mean? And it like doesn't really, it's I don't really like that buzzword so much either. But yeah,
I love that.
I have definitely a visceral reaction to that, as you just saw.
I love how, like, right, a conversation, like, the frequency of certain words, how they affected you, and they didn't affect me. Like, authenticity gave you a visceral reaction. It didn't. So that's, like, the example of the nuance that words can have for each person. I freaking love that.
I think, too, like, I can take that and be like, okay, I have a problem with that. Or, like, we can kind of turn it into, like, being a bad thing. Or like being triggered is a bad thing, but it's also really fucking good. Like it's being triggered is also very activating. It can turn something on within you. You can feel very charged about something, and it not be like you're wounded or it's bad. It's like it's something that lit something up inside you. And I've just been like kind of sussing this out with myself, because I don't have an issue with that, but I love to talk and to learn and to speak about it and teach about it. I can never say the word sometimes. Being authentic is very much kind of wrapped up in how like I like to talk about and teach about self-discovery. It's like another aspect. So like for me, it's like so much a part of like what I'm here to do and embody and help people with, that like it feels very activating, where I'm just like, yes, we need to, like, why is it like such a word where it's just like, be your authentic self? Like, why is even that a phrase? Like everybody should be embodying their their authentic self.
You
Like,
hate the word so much you can't even say it.
I know. It's being it's like a tongue tie for me, or a tongue twister.
Yeah.
But like, why? It's like it also feels like the same thing with manifesting. Like, we're continuously manifesting because we're energetic beings and we're always co-creating. So it's not that like
Always attracting.
Yes, like it's not like, oh, I'm good at manifest. Like, we're all manifesting.
It's like matching energetics. Like,
yeah.
whatever you're floating at is what's gonna float to you.
yeah. But yeah, it can feel very frustrating to me, because it's like, wait, we should all be our authentic selves. Like, why is that such a hype right now? But we're not. Like, we're taught from a very young age, from several different ways of cultural things, from school, from like not standing out, from not to be like the kid that's the weirdo and all that kind of stuff. And it just completely just puts shit all over our field. And it takes like years of like trying to unwind that out and get back to our authentic selves. So I think that's why it's so activating, because it's like something that I'm here to really do. And so it's just like, oh, like, why aren't we just doing that already?
But like,
anyways,
isn't that the feeling in you? Like, I feel like when you have that feeling in you, it's like an energy of like, this is something separate. Or does that resonate? Like, whenever I feel like like whenever, or is that just the way we're approaching it?
Like,
because usually when you feel
Uh-huh.
like your perspective, like whatever has that energy, you're like, you don't want to be a part of that, even though everything is one, we're all part of the same source, blah blah blah. Like, we all are different expressions of
love that. Blah blah blah, like
blah blah, like
source is everything, we are source.
Yeah.
Like, we'll just
And then
yeah,
blah,
no, I
blah,
love
blah.
that. Blah blah blah. I fucking love that.
Even
Because
that
it is,
word
it's like,
is
you
a
know,
part
all
of
that
source.
stuff. Yeah, right. Blah blah blah. No, okay, for me, I think it's very like, it feel like visceral things feel very sacral for me, feel very like, when I use like sounds to understand what my body is trying to tell me. So for me, I'm very much, and this is a new thing that I've had to learn about myself, but it's like learning the language of what my body is trying to communicate with me. So when I feel like yes, or like when I'm eating food, or if like it's like in relation to like the sound effects of like what the body is trying to tell me. And so those are things that like help guide me, that like my actual brain is like trying to like mentally process, or like mentally trying to like figure out in a logical way, where like I can try to logically understand why I'm so bothered about being authentic and what that word means for me. But like, when I have like that visceral, like, it's like, I know something's there for me to look at, or I'm like, and it's also something like that reaction for me lets me know that there's like some juiciness there. Like, I'm lit up about that. There's passion for me there. It's like something for me to go into deeper, if that makes sense. But I think when you were saying like, when it's nuanced with people, of like what your body's trying to tell you, or how you orient from certain sounds or words or frequency, you know, everybody has their own relationship to that. So part of that is like learning your own.
Like, my
so that's what
is different than your
and like, I have different ones. Like, I can be really like, I don't want that, and I can be like, you know, throw a tantrum in a way, or I can be like, that just like is so good, and you just feel it in like that sacral part where you have like your ovaries and stuff, and you're just like,
I
that
love
just
how
feels really
primal
good.
this is. Like, this is where children live. Like, I feel like children have all the answers, and they're used to just making weird sounds like all day, every day, before they like acquired language. They
and
know
before
they're
we're
honest.
told how to like behave and taught how to do things, and and then we live in like a societal way to do things, of like what's appropriate, what's not appropriate, like, you know, and so it's trying to like rework yourself to like, I mean, not be an animal out there, but it's like to be, we are animals, like, so we should be listening to the body and like what the body is trying to tell us. And so that's been something that I've hugely navigated. There we go.
Navigate.
My brain's like short circuiting.
I have to add something here though, because when I went through my year, I think I shared this with you. I went through my year of a million Akashic readings because I would trade coaching for Akashic readings. And I had a moment where I was asking philosophical questions in the records, and I wanted to ask, I asked, what is authenticity? I asked that question. And the answer broke my fucking brain. Like, I had to sit with it for a month to actually, like, really let it sink in. And that also, like, alludes to the fact that sometimes maybe if you don't understand something now, like, maybe it's something that you grow into or understand later. Like, I've had many instances, like, it's not like, I think people will read something, they're like, oh, I just don't get it. But maybe you're just not there yet. Maybe this wasn't the moment for you to receive that message from this text or video or whatever. Maybe it's like a later moment. So how they describe what authenticity is, well, isn't everyone being authentic? Like, there's a person who your soul aspires to be, and then there's a person that everybody thinks they're supposed to be. So isn't that authentic? That they think they need to be this way for whatever that reason is. It could be the slew of traumas or the conditionings and stuff like that. And I was just like,
Yeah.
we're always being authentic.
Yeah. Always authentic in like the experience that we're having. And then it's also authentic to be like, wait, we are also souls and we have this. Yeah, I think that's brilliant. Like, and I think that's honestly why I love like energy and channeling and all that kind of stuff, because like our logical brain wants to try to really make sense of things like, okay, this plus this equals this, and that makes sense because of this, and I should do this because of that. And energy is so much more broad, and sometimes it just gives us like this very simple but very specific, direct, like gut feeling could come across as like, you need to go here, you need to go do this, and your brain's like, what the fuck? Like, no, I don't,
Doesn't make sense.
Yeah, or like I love that I love that description though, because it's true. Like, that is authentic to them at that frequency, at that point, at that
Like
experience. That like, yeah,
especially
I think that's
those who
beautiful.
aren't ready to embody something that that wasn't safe for them to be to begin with. Like, say, like
Yeah,
boomers.
yeah, they're working.
A
They're
lot of
working
boomers
on
are
it.
like that. But
Oh,
I have another question,
yes.
and it's like a variation of the other one. And what colors are you vibing with right now?
Oh,
Like, which one? Okay, which one are
again, I
you
just had like
attracted to? You
I just
attracted
had such a
to?
reaction again.
I love that. Like,
Like,
okay,
don't.
so what colors are you moving towards? Which ones are you embodying, and which ones are you repelled by?
Okay. Definitely moving towards greens, deep greens.
My
And
favorite color.
yeah, like my background, I've been embracing my colors. And then
Oh,
like red, like reddish orange. I just got a new truck, and like that was the color that it
oh, I
was
saw
was.
that. I
Yeah.
was like, wow, that's
Yeah.
amazing.
Which is, it's like when you're always manifesting, and when you allow things to be synchronistic and things to just have meaning, because everything, in my opinion, does. When I was shopping for that truck, it was like the only truck on the lot, and like I've been working with my body, been working with my sacral, been working with those feelings a lot. And yeah, that truck ended up being like this reddish orange, and I was like, how fucking perfect. But yeah, it's like those two colors I'm moving towards and embracing more. And then repelling, I don't I absolutely love color. So I guess like the thing that I would be repelling, which ironically I'm kind of wearing it right now, but like usually uh like beige,
Oh,
like
yeah.
the like muted colors, like and which is like usually kind of like the more mainstream color palette, like the neutrals,
Mhm.
the just kind of like, yeah, I would say like neutrals in a way, like very kind of trigger me in a way where it's just like I love color so much, and I have no idea why somebody would want to have like not really bold and bright colors. So When people like have a
Well,
very
I wanna
muted color tone, it confuses me. So I have to explore that within
Yeah.
myself.
Yeah. Well, I read recently that muted colors or neutrals, like very
Mhm.
neutral, like maybe just like white and like offshoots of white.
Yeah.
I don't know. Those colors, like I read somewhere that it's like colors of the patriarchy, and I was like,
Interesting. Huh.
isn't that an interesting thought?
That is an interesting thought. Is that why I'm so repelled by
Like we
them?
all should look the same, so we're all these muted colors,
Oh,
like everybody's wearing
wow.
muted colors. Or
Mm, yeah.
I don't know. I like
I don't
black
know.
still, but I want to wear more color. The expression thing is like really big right now for
Yeah.
me, whatever that
Oh,
ends up looking like. I'm really excited about it.
yeah. I'm excited for you. Like expression, like I think that's honestly one of my favorite ways to experiment. And it has been like that since I was little. Like I basically like to play dress up. Like that's really what it is. Like I like to,
Yeah.
like when I was in high school, I moved around a lot when I was a kid. So like I'm originally from California, but I moved like every couple of years for like my dad's work. So we were like kind of always in transition, which helps. It has given me so many different lessons, honestly, that like I think we're obviously on purpose. Like we choose a lot of things for very specific reasons, even if it's difficult in my belief that our soul is really wanting to grasp or like dive into or be deeper in. And since I had moved so much, I really had to like be very comfortable from an early age that like I look different, I sound different, I don't know anybody, I'm the new kid, everybody's looking at me like I'm the one that stands out because it's like that's just what happens when you're like the new kid in school in a classroom and small schools and stuff. So it gave me this like ability to like be very comfortable with like introducing myself to like new people and meeting new people because it just was like a skill that I had when I was younger because it's just like sink or swim, like meet people or be alone. So the that also skill was like I was in high school in Medina, Ohio, and I couldn't like afford the cool kid clothes of like everything that was popular like in the mall. And so I went to antique shops before like thrifting was ever a fucking thing. I like thrifted when I was young and I wore these like 50s, like legit 1950s dresses that I'd get at antique shops. And I would wear gowns to work or to school, like matching jackets,
Wow.
like beautiful pieces. But like I just had, since now, I mean, we haven't even talked about the hypnosis session, but like
Yeah.
I had a massive lifetime in the 1950s. My very most recent past life was in that era. And I mean, no wonder I have such an affinity towards like that dress. But like
Mhm.
playing with dressing up in different styles has just been like my favorite fucking thing. Like I love like having, playing with like dark goth and being like super like, emo because I had an emo phase and then I like being like skater and then I feel like boyish and then I wear dresses, so I don't know, like dressing up and like wearing different clothes. I really understand. I understand, but I don't understand because it's so easy for me. But I understand that for people wearing something different, even a different color that they're not used to is very uncomfortable and like very like stressful and like absolutely not. I wouldn't do that. And for me, I'm like, why the fuck not? Like it's so fun to just like dress up. So, but
I'm that person though. Like I'm
that
that
you don't want
person
to
where
wear.
because that's why I'm calling it an exploration now. Like I'm
Yeah,
literally
okay.
learning
Yeah.
what is my authentic expression. What does my soul want to express?
Yeah, yeah,
I feel like I'm
yeah.
in that phase right now.
Oh,
And
that's so
I was
fun.
wondering if you have like Leo in your chart because I feel like being bold and out there is
Oh my
very
God.
Leo-ish.
I can't believe you just said that because circling back to Stormy. And so like my birth name is Erica. And I just recently I've only honestly been like about a month in of embodying Stormy. And it is a name actually that like my spirit essentially chose. Like my mom wanted to name me Stormy when she birthed me.
So cool.
Yeah, it's really cool. Like, and that name was delivered to her for reasons of like, that was the frequency that I knew that I needed to have to like carry out this life mission.
Mm-hmm.
But it also was like in perfect plan that I had to discover that for myself. And Erica served me such a beautiful way. And now I get to step into this different frequency, this different vibe. And
Type A Erica to Stormy, whatever happens
yeah.
now.
Yeah, right.
So
That was
cool.
I know. But I bring this up because when the name dropped in, the full name for me is Stormy Sage. And that's what like my website and my Instagram and stuff, I switched everything to I am Stormy Sage. And when I got that name delivered to me of like, yep, this is it, I looked at the time. And so I essentially have
What was
like
the time?
a new birth chart of like this energy. And like in Stormy's energy, she has a Leo rising. So it's funny that
Oh,
yeah.
what?
So I'm like, oh my God, that's so cool. So I love that you said that because it kind of, I get to like experience both charts and
Mm-hmm.
see what that is able to like, bring out in me. But yeah, so.
I'm a Virgo rising, so I'm like, I've been feeling like pandemic times still like are with me, like the way I dress, like I literally don't care these
Yeah.
days.
Yeah.
But now I feel like I'm stepping more, I'm like, well, creative expression. I feel like I need to be embodying that Virgo rising in me. And like, if anybody doesn't know what Virgo, like rising signs in general means, is like how you show up in the world.
Yeah.
Basically, like in the
How people
shortest
see you.
terms.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, how people see you.
Yeah. Erica's chart is a Virgo rising. So
No.
yeah. And then, yeah, we're talking about astrology natal charts. And you can find your all of these terms. People call them like your big three if you're like dating and stuff. Like it's becoming more popular.
The big three.
What's your big three? But you can find this like at astro.com like for free. And so you'll see like your sun is your regular sign. I'm not like a huge like astrology. I love astrology, but I don't know enough to be like this, and this. But yeah, your sun is like what you probably know that you are, like when your birthday is. And then your rising is how the outside world sees you, and your moon is how like you see you, like your private you kind of thing is how I understand it. But I think it's really, I like that you brought up that like the COVID time though, because I mean, it's 2024, we're like 4 years out, but like sometimes in a lot of ways, it feels like it was like yesterday. It was like such a traumatic time for all of us collectively. And it's like, wait, I should be over this, or I shouldn't, like such a weird thing to think. Should be like, it's like one of those
What does
things
that
like,
even mean?
Everybody else moved on with their life. Like, what have we? Like,
did they really?
Did we really process everything? Like, how do you process such a huge thing like that? And I think that like just having that awareness around that and letting yourself explore, because it's like you kind of get into, especially with like outer expression. And I get this way even when I love it, is like, I have, when you're in a rut of like working from home, or you're in like leisure wear, workout wear, like then you go into your like sleep wear, which is also could be your day wear. And it's just like this like kind of blend that you like just like stay in the same clothes. At least that's like how I can be sometimes, where I'm like, I need to like change my clothes.
My thing is like, I want to be comfortable.
Yeah.
I want to remain comfortable, but I want to figure out what.
But you could be comfortable by still exploring and see, I think that's where like you can have like, oh, if I, if I really like use my self-expression, or if I like really go out into this, I have to be uncomfortable. Like, absolutely not. Like, like that's
my
not
exploration.
right. Yeah, you say like, okay, I want to explore things, but I also want to maintain comfortability. That means for me, like things that are really important when I like have clothes, or like I'm very like sensitive to like materials. So I know that if it's like uncomfortable or scratchy, or if there's a tag, or if it's like tight, or like I can be very sensorily overwhelmed. And so like for me, when I'm picking things, like I know that about myself. So like having a few things of like, okay, I'm comfortable if things aren't tight, the material's good, and I feel comfortable, and then or like having more of a definition for yourself of what being comfortable means. And then I think that might help like you choosing different things. Like if this top that you would never buy before, if it meets all your boxes and you're like, wait, I still don't feel comfortable in it. Like it's supposed to be uncomfortable to some degree because it's like letting yourself.
Is that like a feeling, or is it physically uncomfortable?
It could be both.
Or is it like a fear? Or like, it's like there's so many angles, like, and you don't know what's coming up for you unless you look at it.
Unless you try too.
I did
like,
have
you
an
don't
interesting,
really know.
Yeah, you just try it. Like that's what I went to
Yeah.
I never go shopping because I honestly like spending money on clothes like repels me. Like
Okay, there's
it's
something
like
there
a
for
weird
you.
thing. Yeah.
Why? Yeah. Okay, you can explore that on
Well,
your own, but
yeah, no, I'm gonna explore that because I still haven't really figured it out. But
Yeah.
it's like it has to do with it's always about money, right? That what I'm going through. But
Yeah.
since I left my job.
Totally.
But
Totally.
I went shopping. Like I was like, let me go to the mall and see if I can find something cute for this as a cute addition accessory to my outfit, like because I'm like in this season of playing creativity. And I found a sale, which is funny, and I found these really cute structured pants that were like wide legged and they were like fitted at my waist, and I absolutely love them. I love them so much. Like I could feel like my skin breathe underneath the pants because they're wide leg, and I was just like, why didn't I do this before?
Yeah.
And I got them for
Right?
$15.
I love that. I also want to add, because we've talked about clothes and like big decisions like haircut or color, but like self-discovery and exploration of like your external self can be very micro too. Like it can be very much like something that you wouldn't even think would make a difference, and it completely makes a shift. So like for an example, I have blue mascara on. And so like when I started, like blue mascara was a mistake for me at first because I put the primer on and then not the black. And then everybody was like, oh, I love your mascara. And I'm like, okay, thank you. But I didn't realize that it was blue because it was primer. And I thought I put the black on.
You didn't even realize the
I didn't even realize
was
it.
blue?
It didn't even, because like the primer is blue. And like when I get ready, I like put the primer blue on.
Why do you think my mascara is amazing when it's just
black? I was
black,
confused.
Right? Oh, okay, I get it now.
I was like, thanks. Because like I didn't look in the mirror and realize it. And then I looked in the mirror later that day and I was like, oh my God, it's blue. So then I like kind of jumped on that wave and actually got blue mascara because I was like, this is actually really fun. And I really like this. So it could be, it could be glitter. For me, like makeup is more of an edge for me because I don't do makeup very well and it intimidates me. So like I'll
like makeup.
Yeah. So like I'll do like glitter or like a new gloss or like changing your earrings, or I just found this necklace in my drawer that I hadn't worn since I was in Indonesia. So I like put this back on. I was like, oh, so like little things can shift your frequency or to experience a different side of yourself. And it can be so micro. It does not have to be a huge shift or a whole new wardrobe or like this huge thing.
Oh, I love
like
that.
Small things can still make a huge shift. Yeah. So I just wanted to add that.
I think like that's what a lot of people are going through right now collectively is like, realizing you don't have to spend money to achieve the same effect.
Yeah.
All right, we're gonna end this conversation right there and continue it next week. The part 2 will come out next week. I just wanted to oh my God, next week is gonna be so we talk about Stormy's quantum hypnosis experience. She did quantum hypnosis with me, and it's a really good one, you guys. It's fascinating, and we don't go super deep in the details, but she does give her big takeaways. And just as a reminder, I do share if when I have permission, if and when I have permission, my clients or people I work with, their hypnosis sessions on Substack. They're all housed in Substack. So part two, the Substack that accompanies part two's episode, will have her hypnosis in that Substack. So I hope that makes sense. I link it all in the show notes anyway, so you guys can find it. I try to make this so navigatable, hopefully. And if that's a word, you get what I'm trying to say. But anyways, we will see you next week. Bye.